Number one, to come into the truth movement, if you're really concerned about truth, you've got to check an ego at the door, okay? You do not know everything. A lot of you think you do, but you don't. I certainly don't. Through your school system, through your education that you're so proud of, that builds your whole ego, your whole value in life, it's impossible for you to discard it and admit you were deceived. Let me tell you something. You've been deceived. It's not your fault. You can let go of your ego. Nobody's gonna laugh at you except other people that can't let go of their ego. But people that have caught on to the con and realized the power grab that's taken place, they're not gonna laugh at you. They're gonna welcome you. I'm telling you again, the worst thing they fear is the hive mind. The one thing they fear is 300 million people in the United States coming together on one topic and saying, this makes no sense. We need answers. Why is the flat earth so important? Because it shows the deception. There are enough reasonable questions to create reasonable suspicion that we've been lied to. They can't afford to keep being asked. There's enough to see that it's not what we've been told. And once that is revealed, everything these governments have done becomes illegitimate. That is why it matters, and that is why they will do anything they can to keep us fighting, keep us distracted, keep us at odds against each other, just like the entire world, whether it be Christians against Muslims, blacks against whites. Government that truly has your best interest, your freedom at heart? Or does it sound like a government that wants to keep you constantly busy on paying attention to anything but what they're doing? And this truth movement is no different. Because as soon as the topic starts going where everybody could actually make a stand and say, hey, wait a minute, this needs to be answered. This is a big one. And I don't care what anybody says, the flat earth, the shape of the earth, is the biggest conspiracy and has been used to manipulate, deceive, and control us all. If God forbid everybody came and started demanding answers, and once they can't provide those answers, people realize they are busted. It can't be a mistake. It can't be anything but the deception and control mechanism it is. Flat Earth is not a psyop. Flat Earth destroys the psyop. Every psyop that's been used to control us for as long as they've known about it. So this system has been in power and control for hundreds of years, ever since they convinced the rest of the world that they didn't know where they live, and created this fantastical scenario to make people feel insignificant and to follow those that appear to know better, that are just better liars, deceivers, that have no conscience, and will do everything and anything to everybody and anybody they can to keep that power. Because people are waking up. And no matter how much they try to suppress this flat earth movement, oh, it's gonna keep moving one way or another. You can see it. People are waking up. So now, louder than ever, I can hear that clock. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. It's a religion. It's all a religion. You know why? Because government is a religion. Government is the majority of the world's true God, because they believe that these people have some sort of power, and they've even convinced us that we've given it to them. They still have us convinced in 2015, the age of instant communication, that we, for some reason, need representatives in a city that's not even part of this country called Washington, D.C. to represent us. That in this age of instant communication, we can't represent ourselves for some reason. That's how deep the brainwashing and the indoctrination has gone. They still have you convinced that this government should be run on the same system it was run when people were back on horseback using telegraphs and Pony Express. That's why they had these representatives, had to go to Washington, so that they could go back home to this group of a few 100,000 people and say, well, what do you guys want? Okay, I'll go tell them. And they travel for a week to Washington, D.C. or however long it takes. That's why you needed representatives. Now I can push this button and talk to anybody in the world. What the fuck do I need a representative for? Because it's the power system, the control system. They have to keep indoctrinating you in schools, teaching you about everything and anything but where you live. Now they have to treat out all the money that was going into the educational system to control your mind isn't working anymore. People see how stupid everybody is. That is the failure of government. See, Flat Earth proves the failure of government, period. Because it's either deceived and lied and indoctrinated us all into a false system, or it's completely failed in making people realize if they really live on a globe, a lot of people don't see it. So your education system has failed now, hasn't it? In order to believe it, we've got to believe a bunch of math formulas that only a few people in the world can supposedly understand, and we've just got to take your word for it. Here in this age of all this technology where I can get on this phone, record this video, and send it out to the world, they can't seem to find a way to easily, simply prove to everybody on the planet where they live. It always depends on some formulas that the majority of the people don't understand. And again, the people that do understand it don't understand it. They either that know it's bullshit or they believe it's bullshit because it's just religion and it's not proven. It's just twisted formulas to fit their agenda. It doesn't wash out in reality. What difference does it make? What difference does it make? Yeah, that's their favorite line. Got a lot of people, what difference does it make? You can't figure out what difference it makes? If you can't figure out what difference it makes that the people running your world have fucking lied to you over and over your whole life, if you can't figure out that someone lying to you is trying to control you, suppressing of information, of knowledge, is control. Deception of information and knowledge is a form of control. So what difference does it make? It makes a big difference, because once they start omitting information or lying about information about where you live, they're doing it to control you, period. Why am I having to explain this to critical thinkers in the truth movement? Where you live, it's been a lie the whole time, and if everybody would just come together and demand answers, they would be in checkmate. They would not know what the fuck to do. They cannot prove it. They can't prove the globe because it doesn't exist.
This is basically the biggest thing you could possibly lie about. The best way to brainwash the whole world is to lie to the whole world about what the world is.
They've stolen our mind from us and stuck us on a cartoon ball.
It is photoshopped, but it has to be.
Everything in the sky revolves around us, just as it appears if you look up and use your own eyes, your own senses. The vanishing point of perspective from your point of view, which is what the horizon line is. It is not the curvature of the earth, as you've been taught.
They stole your mind. They stole my mind.
Because you just read the words of a bunch of guys that you never met, and you just take it on faith that everything they wrote was true.
And what makes you think what your scientists are writing is any more truer than my saints?
Because there are volumes of proven data, numbers, figures.
Have you poured through the data yourself? The numbers, the figures?
Well, no.
Oh, interesting. So let me get this straight, Mr. Reynolds. you get your information from a book written by men you've never met. And you take their words as truth, based on a willingness to believe, a desire to accept, a leap of, dare I say it, faith?
Come on. Look, I mean, I don't even know how I'm supposed to respond to that. Like, come on.
I rest my case.
Always question the scientists and their foundations.
At the moment, modern physics is not making a lot of sense.
What is everything made of? Oops, there's about 95% stuff we don't know.
Philosophically speaking, it's very uncomfortable. Because if the Earth is in the center of the universe, that means that somebody put it there.
Matter tells space how to curve. Space did I get that right?
The science community is ignoring a lot of the things that we're looking at, and so normal people are going out and doing experiments. And one of the experiments has turned up an amazing fact that we've not been told, and it destroys the whole idea of this heliocentric system, and that is the moon. Now, you can actually measure the temperature of the moonlight next to the temperature of the shade of the moonlight, and you'll find the moonlight is colder than the shade, the opposite from the sun. So the moon is throwing out its own light, and that light is the opposite from the sun. Now, that tells you that it's not reflecting the sun's light. It's producing its own, and its light is different from the sun's. So, you know, the scientific community have not told us this, because they won't tell us this, because it destroys this idea that the sun is lighting up the moon.
Just our common sense, everyday perception of the Earth, it is flat as far as we can tell. It is motionless as far as we can tell. And everything in the sky is revolving around us as far as we can tell. If nobody told us otherwise, we'd logically assume that the Earth was flat, motionless, with everything in the sky revolving around us. And you can prove that this is the case as well, for instance, with the horizon. As you rise up, no matter how high you go on the top of Mount Everest, or if you go in a balloon higher and higher, we've gotten independent balloons have gone up with cameras, the horizon remains flat all the way around and rises to the eye of the camera all the way up, totally flat, and rises to the eye of the observer. So that's one proof. Now, if the Earth were a ball, no matter how big, the horizon is said to be the curvature of the ball.
If you were to go to NASA, it's all fraud, it's all fake. Pretty much everything NASA puts out is fraudulent. There are no images of Earth from space. Put an end to this topic once and for all, turn the Hubble round and show us Earth in real time, but they will not do it. They can't do it. It doesn't exist. It literally doesn't exist.
Of course, you can measure curvature if it actually existed. It's been tested over and over again and found to have no curvature whatsoever.
You've just been lied to and shown pictures, and you believe those. Science, in fact, shows that the Earth is flat and motionless.
Now, one thing I really want your generation to embrace is that the Earth is a closed system. We cannot leave the Earth. There's no place to go.
I just recently gained my mind back.
Astronauts to the moon.
Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we have a problem.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
19 years, $150 billion plus, and you've provided what for humanity? Zip, zero, zilch. Sergey, tell me this. One of the often forgotten details of why people can believe that perhaps the Earth is flat, and perhaps you all are deceiving the world, is this. 19 years you've been in orbit. 19 years in orbit of the Earth, and not once, listen carefully folks, not one time has NASA or Roscosmos provided the people of Earth a 24-hour live stream of the Earth from space. Say what? Okay. Now listen to this answer for the question of what's the most beautiful thing you've seen from the ISS. This is typical indoctrination. It's the point that needs to be hammered home to these children. Here she goes.
To me, I think the most beautiful thing about our planet is looking at the limb of the Earth, the curve of the Earth that we can see from our viewpoint, especially at sunrise and sunset. It is an amazing time.
What is your favorite book and why?
I think, growing up, my favorite book was Illusions by Richard Bach.
Illusions. Her favorite book is Illusions. So I hope you're starting to see why people are entertaining the idea of a flat Earth. Let's go back a little bit earlier when I asked you about the stars. Can we or can't we see them from space? I mean, being that we cannot get the answers ourselves, we need you, the astronauts, who are paid by us to tell us the truth. And here's something that no one seems to understand. In space exploration, which is funded by the people of the world, and where it is not possible to have independent witnesses of the actual events, we as people have every right to expect the record to be 100% genuine, honestly portrayed, and honestly represented. So I ask you again, can we see stars in space? Let's ask some astronauts.
Whilst
from
in
Mark
space,
Cameron. This is from Mark Cameron.
Whilst in space, have you ever looked away from Earth into the black void?
Yeah.
All
because
the
you can
time.
see. Because you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
And pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
Yeah. It's not
which
a
is
black
cool
void.
thing.
I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of little polka dots.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
Yeah, you can, and there's more than stars. You can see planets. You can see moons.
You see the gas Magellan clouds of the Milky Way
you see
galaxy.
the Magellanic Clouds.
Magellanic. See, I was.
Yeah.
All right, interesting. So we can see stars from the day side or the night side of Earth. Got
We
you.
went up, and when you're in space and you're looking into deep space and you're on the sun side of the orbit, the sunlight washes out all the starlight, so you can't see any stars, just like here on Earth. But then when you look out into deep space away from the sun, it's the darkest black you can imagine, right? And so what happens is you really lose your depth perception. You can't tell if something's close by or far away, and so
Because you can see, because you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
And pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
Yeah. It's not
which
a
is
black
cool
void.
thing.
I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of little polka dots.
There's all the stars there, and the cool thing is about it, you can see it during the day.
Yeah, you can.
The sunlight washes out all the starlight, so you can't see any stars, just like here on Earth. But then when you look out into deep space away from the sun, it's the darkest black you can imagine, right?
Like, are they just brighter than on Earth, or how would you describe it?
They're brighter, but they're different. A lot of things different about it. One, you don't have the atmospheric distortion, so they don't twinkle, right? So you see lots of points, and you see lots of points, and that literally millions of them. There's the thing about Carl Sagan, billions of stars. There really are billions and billions of stars, and you can see them. In fact, they're so numerous, it's very difficult to pick out the constellations you and I see here on the ground.
Mr. Armstrong, I do realize that when you were on the moon, you had very little time for gazing upwards. But could you tell us something about what the sky actually looks like from the moon, the sun, the earth, the stars, if any, and so on?
The sky is a deep black when viewed from the moon, as it is when viewed from cislunar space, the space between the Earth and the moon. The Earth is the only visible object other than the sun that can be seen, although there have been some reports of seeing planets. I myself did not see planets from the surface, but I suspect they might be visible.
Because you can see, because you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
And pretty much all the time you can see the stars.
Yeah. It's not a black void. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of little polka dots.
The Earth is the only visible object other than the sun that can be seen, although.
So you see lots of points, and you see lots of points, and that literally millions of them. There's.
The sunlight washes out all the starlight, so you can't see any stars, just like here on Earth. But then when you look out into deep space away from the sun, it's the darkest black you can imagine, right?
The sky is a deep black when viewed from the moon, as it is when viewed from cislunar space, the space between the Earth and the moon.
And there's more than stars. You can see planets. You can
Right.
see moons.
You see the gas Magellan clouds of the Milky
you
Way
see
galaxy.
the Magellanic Clouds.
Magellanic. See, I was.
So, Sergey, I mean, I have to ask people, how is it that they believe the bullshit that has come from NASA, Roscosmos, and the other space agencies?
The directive I'm signing today will refocus America's space program on human exploration and discovery. It marks an important step in returning American astronauts to the moon for the first time since 1972 for long-term exploration and use. This time, we will not only plant our flag and leave our footprint, we will establish a foundation for an eventual mission to Mars and perhaps someday to many worlds beyond.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again. It's a painful process to build it back again.
Many of us and many other people in many places have speculated on the meaning of this first landing on another body in space. Would each of you give us your estimate of what is the meaning of this to all of us?
You want to try that? After you.
That's how fake what they're showing us is. That it is fake because it's fake. And they're going to continue to fake it until they're gone. They must only exist to perpetrate the fraud. That's their entire goal.
We've been lied to. I will not be fooled by aliens coming because there are no aliens. There's no space.
I think it's important that everybody does their own research, and I try to point that out as often as possible, and I try to say it as often as I can, because if you ever are listening to what someone's telling you, or you're watching me point out space fakery or what I think is a hoax, I'm doing that to kind of get you on your way. But all of space travel is fake. All of outer space and the way that we've been taught it, planets and nebulas, is completely different than we've been taught. And that realization ultimately comes with looking into this stuff yourself. People think space is what they've been told because they've been told. And that goes for scientists, that goes for professors, to look into the things that they're teaching. To tell children that they're spinning on a ball is an extraordinary claim. And to say that we're flying through space and that the atmosphere sticks with Earth sounds like extraordinary claims. Sounds like it's just ad hoc explanations for things that we would see on a spinning ball that we don't see because it's not spinning and it's not a ball. If they found out that what they're teaching is a lie, they would all stop tomorrow. And so I think that the main point of what I'm trying to say is going to be the importance behind actually doing your own research and showing NASA to be the fraud that they are. Because of the education that we were given and because of the indoctrination and because of every TV show and video and commercial and logo, if you're about the truth, if you care about actually talking about what things are true and you actually respect people who are willing to speak out about that, then you will come to the realization eventually that we've been lied to, on the largest possible scale. But I also know 100% one thing, and that's that they're hiding God. Without a doubt, in my mind, that is the reason for this all. And like you said, people are getting paid to do it.
Students' claim is reigniting the debate about prayer in schools. The high schooler says an administrator kept her from praying before she ate her lunch.
Senior running back Pedro Banda scored the touchdown that would send his team to the playoffs for the first time. But what Pedro did next got him kicked out of the game and put his football future in jeopardy. He pointed his hand to the sky and thanked God.
When we say public schools, what we really mean is government schools. We have given to the government the role of educating our children. I think that's a bad idea. Very bad idea. Very bad idea.